Hey guys, this is Frank, your virtual general aviation aviator, and today I am in the Immortal Beaver, and let's go ahead and start real weather. So the weather may change in a in a minute or two, but anyway, I'm in the Immortal Beaver, and it is cold. I'm in Newfoundland, Canada, and Labrador, Newfoundland and Labrador province, Canada, at Minipi Lodge, and I've got some guys who I need to fly to Goose Bay Airport. Actually, they're going to Otter Goose Creek, and I'll give you the backstory in just a minute. But we're all cold and we want some heat. All right, so let's set these guys and get this guy for rich. Let's get our field turned to the on position, and we'll start on that front tank. Speaking of tanks, let's verify that we've got enough fuel. Let's see. So yeah, yeah. So I don't need this guy, and we got a pretty heavy payload. Yeah, we've got plenty of fuel. Okay, so we're good. We are good. And let's get this guy started and get rid of the yoke. And we will get some pressure in the fuel line. Even though we got a fuel boost pump, we don't have a pump that comes on before before the aircraft starts. So I've got to pump this guy up manually. And what I don't want to do is pump it up too high, lest the seals could break and cause a fuel leak. And that would be bad. Okay, so let's prime it. Now there's a little primer button down here that's really hard to see, but you should be able to hear that. And we'll do that about 5 or 6 times, or 6 or 7 times since it's so cold. I'm not really counting, but I think that ought to be enough. Okay, and we'll go ahead and turn our beacon light on and our master on. All right, and we'll go ahead and turn that fuel booster on since it's so cold today. Look, it was snowing a little bit, but it stopped, which is a great thing. Hopefully our ceilings on those clouds, our bottoms are pretty high. Hopefully. Anyway, let's get started. Get some heat on. All right. So it's so cold, I'm going to leave the prop feathered and crack the throttle. And clear the prop, make sure there's nobody out there. Prop clear. Okay, so let's try this again. Prop clear. Would help if we turn our mags on, but actually cranking it without mags was a good way to kind of get me some fuel in the reservoirs and the carburetors. All right, prop clear. All right, and My brakes should be on. Yep, it is. It's just so slippery out here that the aircraft was able to slide even with the brakes on. So it is extremely slippery out here. All right, so let's unfeather the prop and check my altimeter. 2977 is the reading, and winds were out of the west, out of the east at 11 knots. So based on the winds, this is my best runway. Okay, so let me turn down the engine sound just a touch. So what's going on? Why am I flying? I've got a film crew who's doing documentaries on outdoorsmen and on guys who are adventurous enough to do outdoors activities in the dead of winter. Now they just wrapped up a guy who's been camping in the backcountry all winter long, and now we're going to meet a guy at Otter Goose Creek who is canoeing in after spending all winter long in waterways that's where the water's deep and fast enough for him to navigate. So yeah, and he should be getting in a couple hours. So we've got roughly about a 35 minute flight to pick him up. I'm sorry, not to pick him up, but for me to drop this film crew off. Now, I've got three guys with me. The guy in the left seat is a 200-pound guy, and I've got a guy in the back seat just behind me. He weighs about 225, and another guy who apparently has that real fast metabolism. He's at 150, and their gear, their camera gear, which is another 75 pounds or so. So yeah, I am fairly heavy with all the fuel that I have on board, and I do have. I started out with completely full tanks because I knew that once I got here, I wasn't going to be able to get fuel. Now, about the scenery. So, I am in, as I mentioned, Minipi, and the real David A. Well, let me go back to the guy who we're meeting. The fictitious guy who's canoeing in, his name is actually David A. And this backstory was inspired by the real David A., who did some work to the scenery and sent me a link to it, which I will include the link in the description below. Speaking of links in the description, you'll also find the link for this scenery pack with some assets that the real David A. has placed on it, in case you want to recreate this flight. So with that said, let's look at our temp. And yes, our cylinder temps has come up, so I guess we can go ahead and get airborne, which is what I was waiting for. All right, so let's drop in some flaps. Since we got some trees to clear, I am going to drop my flaps all the way down to takeoff. Okay, And let's take this brake off. Let's go ahead and turn our alternator on. And let's go ahead and turn our pitot heat on and our nav lights, our landing lights. We'll go ahead and do pulse lights and instrument lights. I'm sure having the instrument lights on will help you guys out some. And we'll go ahead and turn our radio on. Okay, so I think I got everything turned on now. And so everything looks good. Operating temperatures come up, cylinder temps look good, gas is okay, and oil is in the green. All right. So let's release our brake, and we are off. Now, this runway is extremely slippery, so try not to slide off the runway. And I am heavy. Start bringing them flaps in. And let's take a look at the scenery in this neck of the woods. For a second there, I wasn't sure that was working. So there's the runway that I just took off on. And you should be able to see the lodge right off my nose, along with some of the work that David A., the real David A., not the fictitious one, not the guy on the canoe, did. Of course, he put some assets down here for us to enjoy. So we got people canoeing. Okay, so let's head on off to Goose Creek. Now, the only map that I got is, well, I don't have a map, but what I do know is that the creek, I just need to follow the river. I just need to follow the river, and as long as I can keep eyes on that river, it shall lead me, well, it will lead me directly to Goose Bay Airport. About 30 miles or so. Adjust my mixer just a touch. Actually, I want to pull that prop down to about there. And I should be able to just cruise now. I'm at 2,000, which is where I want to be. And I want to make sure that I don't lose sight of the river. Incidentally, this version of the Beaver is by SMS, So Made Sim, and this is version 1.3, and I'm expecting an upgrade to this version to come out any day now. So I am flying over lakes. I'm not sure that I'm in the right location to pick up the river. So I am going to climb. And make sure that I've got my eyes on the river. Yeah, it looks like this is the river here. Yep, I would definitely say this is the river. So right now, what you're looking at is default X-plane scenery, and it does look a little hazy outside. That's by design. That's because the weather is kind of hazy. So give me a second, guys. The sound is the engine sounds are pretty loud. So let me turn that down a little bit so I can hear myself talk and I don't have to continue yelling over the sound of the engine. But one thing about the Beaver, that engine is just a steady hum, and even though it's generating a lot of torque when I add power, the pitch of it doesn't change that much. But I want about 30, 33 on the manifolds. And as you can see, I am floating along at about 140 miles per hour. I'm at 2,500 feet, which is a good height. Originally, I said 2,000 feet, but quite frankly, I was not paying attention to while I was gaining 500 feet. And if I don't pay attention, at this point, I lose 500 feet and not really know it. One thing about the simulator is it's extremely difficult to get a sight picture. Uh, in the in a real aircraft, I would theoretically be able to look at my nose on the horizon and get an idea of whether I am descending or climbing. It is extremely hard to do that in the sim. So as a result, I spent a lot of time looking at my instruments. But flying VFR, you really want to keep your eyes more out of the window, head on a swivel, than glaring at the instruments. In fact, I was watching a video, and the the guy in the left seat was a a guy who had done a lot of simming and actually had his pilot's license, and they were on a VFR flight, and um, the GoPro camera was was pointed back at him and the guy in the right seat. And the guy in the right seat, apparently, he was a CFI and an experienced pilot. The guy in the left seat was not so experienced and a heavy simmer. Anyway, it was interesting watching the guy in the left seat, the inexperienced pilot, focus on the instruments when the guy in the right seat was looking out of the window and suggesting more than one time that the guy who was flying the plane spend a little bit more time looking out of the window. Um, as simmers who transition to real world piloting, we that's one of the habits that we often find that CFIs have to break us from. But as a simmer, um, I don't have that seat in my pants feel, so it's really difficult to tell when I'm descending or ascending because I don't have that feeling of my body responding to the air to the aircraft. Does that make sense? Um, so what I do is I rely on my instruments to tell me what I'm doing since I really can't feel, and the only thing that I can the only sense that I have is this little small view out of the windows, and unfortunately, it's really hard to get anything that's really meaningful. So I'm fully expecting to completely run the fuel tank that I'm on dry before I get to my destination. So I can actually turn my manifold pressure down just a little bit. So let's set it at 30. Actually, the best the best cruise for this plane is actually 20 and 30. So let's do 20 and 30. I had it set a little bit high because I was so heavy. Look, Mom, no hands. So I got it trimmed out nicely. Well, picking up a little altitude right now, but that's okay. Maybe it will. I guess as I burn off fuel, then I could expect to pick up a little altitude. Because as I burn off that fuel, the aircraft is getting lighter. So, one of the biggest killers of pilots is VFR into IMC, Instrument Meteorology. Well, IMC and IFR are actually two different things, but they mean similar things. I don't know why I can't say meteorological. I can't say that word today. But anyway, that's one of the biggest killers, and it looks like I am flying VFR into IMC, Instrument Meteorological Conditions, IMC. Anyway, plus with the temperature as low as it is, I'm sure in real life I would have picked up some icing. Um, I don't think icing is modeled in this aircraft yet. Let's look at the outside, and maybe before it's over with, it will get modeled. But in real life, number one, I would have never made the flight in this particular with these particular conditions, because the aircraft does not have a de-icing system, and that too is a killer. Number two, it had been snowing earlier, and I know that snow, I know that visibility is a real killer. Number three, if I did take off in these conditions, and what I was seeing in front of me now would be cause to turn around and go back. So you might say, well, I can see the river down there, and I might technically have maybe 10 miles of visibility, but in real life, it just wouldn't be worth it. I do love the saying, and apparently I do because I repeat it enough, that there are old pilots and there are bold pilots, but there are no old bold pilots. And right now in the sim, I'm simulating being a bowl pilot. Okay, so let's see what the let's see what this thing says the weather is. So it's 0 degrees Fahrenheit, minus 18 degrees Celsius. Winds are 325 at 10 out of the northeast, and I'm sorry, northwest. And I got light snow. Ceilings are at 4,700 feet. So technically I'm okay on the ceilings, but this really is a flight that, ah man, I didn't mean to shut that down like that. I didn't, technically, I just, nobody would fly a Beaver in these conditions because of ice. And now it is possible, and since I'm not from Canada, I don't really know, but I guess it is possible that the that the snow is cold enough for the snow to not really stick on, to blow right off the metal and not pick up icing, because if you're in snow and you don't, um, if everything is frozen, then it would stand to reason that the air wouldn't stick. However, I got all this heat blowing off this big radio engine, which would melt and could create enough moisture for the air to refreeze on the surfaces of the fuselage and or the wings. So yeah. I do have another flight where I've flown this same route in the PC Porter, and the scenery looks a lot better. Well, I had on manual weather, and it was configured for covert, or basically unlimited visibility. But yes, this is one of those gray, dull, dreary days in the Canadian backcountry. So, since I know I've got at least another 20 minutes of flying, I am going to be quiet and just enjoy the flight. And that way I can speed the flight up on playback. But rest assured, I will sit here in real time and fly. Be back soon. So as I look at this gas on this engine, on this front engine come down, I would say in real life I would go ahead and switch tanks, but I'm expecting the engine to die any second, and when it does, I'll switch to the rear tank. The order in which you want to burn gas in the Beaver is generally front, rear, center. However, if you're in the float plane, then the order is a little different. I think it's center. Not center, but rear, front, and center. So just a little tidbits of information. I'm still trying to keep my altitude up around 2,500. I have not checked the altimeter in quite some time. Let's see. And there it go. Just what I was expecting. And we are back in business. It looks like an airport there. It is an airport. I wonder what airport that is. I don't recall seeing it before. In fact, I may be way off course. It's possible I took it's entirely possible I took a wrong route and somewhere where I'm not supposed to be, because I don't recall any other airports in the route, and I feel like I should have gotten to my destination by now. So let's do this. Anyway, so let's pull up the section on X-Plane. Maybe that will let me know where I'm at, and let me turn my power back up. I don't know what airport that is, but just looking at the sectional here, I am not that far. I don't think I'm that far from Goose Creek. Let's see. Maybe I flew by it. Now Goose Creek. Where the devil am I? I tell you what, guys, let me land, and I'll pull out the sectional and figure out where I'm at. So I'm gonna overfly this airport, see if I see a windsock. There's the windsock there. So yeah, I can, let's see, and then what what do we have here for runway number 13? So yeah, we'll come in and land on 13. So and if I'd have tried to land on such a short base, short left base like that, then I would probably wind up having a bad day. So this is an extended downwind, and I'm gonna turn base and final. Okay, so let me drop some flaps in, pull my power back, lights, gas, mixture, prop. Oh, and go ahead and make this a 360. I might be a little high anyway. Let's see, I am 50. I was wondering what I was doing on frames because it's getting some stuttering. All right, so I should see that airport now. Yep, there it is. Keep that speed up. I don't want to get too slow. So now this is one of the things that I was talking about earlier in this flight, how if you don't look at your gauges, you don't have that feeling, and I could easily get too slow. Let's get some flaps in. And I may need to do a go around because I feel like I'm way too high. I don't know the elevation, so this will be a go around. But I need to get an idea of how what the elevation of the field is. So I could probably land. Let's go ahead and land. I think I can make this. All right. So I see the assets at the end of the runway anyway, so that kind of worked out. Peek up over that dash. And okay. In real life, that's often how people with these tail draggers with these big radial engines in front have to peek out by going sideways and looking out over the side of the aircraft. All right, so I can clean up here. Flaps up. Lights off. Strobe lights off. And my oh man, the guys in the back seat, they are getting pretty pissed that that I got them out in Newfoundland, and I don't even know what airport I'm at. Feather that prop. Okay. Let's bring up this section over here. So we can figure out where the devil we are. Where are we? Looks like I'm at that CZUM, and I am so far from my destination I don't even see it. Let's pull it up in Sky Vector. Sky Vector. Got distracted there for a second. All right, so I'm gonna pull that over and then make it visible. Okay. So this is where I want it to be at, and I think it was CZUM. CZUM. Wow. And this is where I'm at. And this is the route. Let's see. I think my start was somewhere up in here, and I was supposed to fly this river here and then swing back to the right and land here. Apparently what I did, I wish there was a marker I could turn on here, but there isn't. Let's see. Apparently what I did was I took this route here, went on up through here. I think, let's see. Yeah. I went on up through here. And then when I got here, when I got to this intersection, I apparently veered off to the west and followed this river all the way here, which is why it took so much longer than I thought it would, because I am way somewhere where I should not be. So I am tired right now, but what I am, what I do a part two to this flight, and fortunately, this guy do have a ADF radio, so I do know that if I fly roughly a 100, if I fly roughly 100 on the compass rose on the radio, then I ought to fly a Baron 2 this ADF. So I should be able to find it on the ADF. And let's see, I think this guy does have, yeah, I can use an ADF. So with that said, I'm gonna go ahead and shut down. And I hope I kept you guys, for any of you guys who stayed with me this whole flight. I hope I kept you company. I enjoyed having you aboard. And on the next flight, no matter what the weather is, I'm gonna make it a beautiful day. All right. And I'll probably fly the Thunder version on the next flight, which will have a GPS in it anyway. But I will fly using the ADF. Okay, so and I hope you guys enjoyed this flight, even though my the film crew is pissed with me and they want to do a bathroom run, which we'll all do, and um, fictitiously we'll get back in the air and try to get there to meet David A. canoeing in, but in reality, I'll do this flight some other day. So until next time, guys.
Y'all come back now. Cheers.
Ciao.